Okay, in this video we're going to have a quick walkthrough on February March 2022 paper 3 core, and this paper is still for 1 hour 15 minutes, same time with extended. So let's go through the paper. Quick question number 1 said figure 1.1 is a photomicrograph of an animal cell. So the first question is, identify the structure in the cell that contains genetic materials. Now, you all know that genetic materials are usually found inside the nucleus of a cell. Inside the nucleus of a cell. So the first question there is, label the structure on figure 1.1 by stating the name in the space provided and drawing a label line to show its location. Now, going back to this diagram, this is the cell membrane cytoplasm. Obviously, this is the nucleus at the middle. Then you draw it to the space provided, write the word nucleus. That's it, 2 marks. Now, the actual size of an animal cell is much smaller than it appears in the image. Okay, now state the piece of laboratory equipment that you can use to view animal cells. Simple. This is, you use a light microscope. Next, plants contain additional cell structure when compared to animal cells. So state 2 structure of plant cell that are not present in the cell shown in figure 1.1. Now, figure 1.1 is an animal cell. So plant cells have chloroplast. Plant cells have they all have cell wall, and plant cells have sap vacuole that help to store cell sap. So any 2 of that, you get your full mark. Now, say figure 1.2 is a diagram representing the concentration of oxygen inside an animal cell. Now we have, this is outside the cell and this is inside the cell. Then we have letter X. So however, you find out that there are more particles outside the cell. So obviously outside the cell have a higher concentration, while inside the cell have a lower concentration of oxygen molecules. So X will act as the cell membrane. So let's see what the question is. Question is, state the name of the part labeled X. Okay, I've said it already. Cell membrane. Draw an arrow on figure 1.2 to show the net direction of movement of the oxygen molecules. Obviously, to move from a region of high concentration to a region of low concentration. So this arrow, you draw it moving through the cell membrane. That will give you your 1 mark. Now state the name of the process represented by the arrow you have drawn on figure 1. It's simple. That's diffusion. If assuming it's water molecules, then it will be osmosis, and if it's movement of ions, most times you can bring in active transport there. Now, question number 2, figure 2.1 is a diagram of the male reproductive system in humans. Now, the first thing you do whenever you're given a question like this is for you to quickly label the part that is here. Now, this is the testis, or you can call it testes. Then this is the prostate gland. This is, you see, this is the direction in which it's going. This from the testes this way. So that will be the sperm duct. And C will be your urethra, is the passage for both sperm and urine. So let's see the question now. I said the boxes on the left show the later in figure 2.1 that identify the part of the male reproductive system. Now, the boxes on the right shows the function of some of these parts. Draw 4 straight lines to match each letter to its correct function. Now, A is the prostate gland, and the function of the prostate gland is to add fluid to the sperm to make it semen. So let's see, tube which carries urine, no. Tube which carries and the sperm, no. Secrete fluid for sperm to swim in. That's the function of the prostate gland. So I'll go there. And B is the testis, and the function of the testis is simply to produce sperm. Our C is the urethra, so it's the passage for both sperm and urine. So tube which carries sperm and urine, yeah. Then D on the diagram is the sperm duct. So sperm duct, the function is a tube that carries sperm to the urethra. That's it. 4 marks. Now the next question is, the testes are organs that produce a hormone that controls the development of secondary sexual characteristics in male. Draw a circle on the name of it. Now the testes produce the hormone called testosterone. That's all. You draw a circle there, you've gotten the full mark. Now explain why the testis is classified as an organ. Now what they're just asking you here is basically you define an organ, you get that mark. So an organ is a group of tissue. An organ is a group of tissue that carry out specific function. That's all. Now, reproduction is one of the characteristics of living things. Now, state 2 other characteristics. Now, if you remember your Miss Gren, where M is for movement, so I can decide to write movement here, because let's say outside reproduction you can write any other. R here can be respiration. I can decide to bring in sensitivity. For my S, growth. For my G, now since they've mentioned reproduction, there is no need bringing it in, because they say you should name 2 other. So I can bring in excretion, or you can bring in nutrition. So any of that will give you a mark. So the next question is, describe how sexual reproduction differ from asexual reproduction. So simple. Just sexual reproduction requires, let me see, okay, let me just, in order to be fast, you see, sexual reproduction, it requires 2 parents first. It requires 2 parents, while asexual is just a single parent. Another point is sexual reproduction has to do with gametes. Gametes is involved. Sexual reproduction is quite slow, takes a longer time than asexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction also lead to variation, while asexual reproduction don't lead to variation. Sexual reproduction, you have it usually lead to the growth of fewer offspring. Now that's it. Now we have figure 1 3.1 is a diagram of a section through a human heart. So if you look at this human heart, first you should label the part. That's the first thing you should do. Now oxygenated blood from the lungs, the blood vessel that brings oxygenated blood from the lungs back to the heart is the pulmonary veins. Why? And the valve that separates the atrium from ventricle is the atrioventricular valve, and the one on the right side, it's the tricuspid. So this is my tricuspid valve. which is an example of atrioventricular valve, why this is a bicuspid valve. So with that, let's see what. Draw the letter X on figure 3.1 to show the position of the septum. Now the septum separate the heart into two equal parts, separate it from the right and the left, and is this muscle here. Draw the letter X, that's the septum. Now state the name of the blood vessel label Y. So let's see, label Y is pulmonary vein. Now state the function of the part labeled Z. Z is the valve, so it prevents backflow, backflow of blood, or you can say valve ensure blood move in one direction. Now, state how the part labeled Z in 3.1 can be used to monitor the activity of the heart. Simple, that's the valve. You can do that by listening to the opening and closing of the valve. So listening to the opening and closing of the valve. The last question here is state the name of the main type of tissue that forms the wall of the heart. That's the cardiac tissue. That's the tissue that forms the wall of the heart. Okay, yeah, I thought that's the last question. No, it's not. Here we have, so the scientists measure the average resting heart rate of 7 different species of animals, and they also estimated the average life expectancy of each species. So figure 3.1 is a graph of the scientists' data. So 7 animals. So here we have a mouse, which is 1. We have the hamster, the second animal here, 2. We have fox 3, wolf 4, 5, 6, and 7. So let's see what question is coming out from this. So we have average life expectancy. So complete the sentence to describe the result in figure 3.2. That the animal with the highest average resting heart rate is, so you come the highest average resting heart rate. So this is average resting heart rate. So the one with the highest is the mouse. So go back to the first one there, which is mouse. So all you need to do is you write mouse. So this is simple interpretation of your graph. Now the animal with the lowest, so you come look at this, the last one here. Is that the one with the lowest? So you have a value here, you also have a value here. So I think the horse is the animal with the lowest because the onca is higher than the horse. This is the point where the horse is, and it's less than 50. So lowest for me there is the horse. If you look at it, hamster, horse, tiger, this so this is the point. So the horse is lower. Now let's say the general trend is that as the average life expectancy increase, the average resting heart rate will do what? So if you look at the heart rate, as life expectancy increases, decreases, the average resting heart rate also decreases. So now let's say another animal species has an average life expectancy of 14 years. Using the information on figure 3.2, predict the average resting heart rate of this animal species in beats per minute. So you come, this is 15, so where would 14 be? you have 10 smaller boxes, so this will be 11, this will be 12, this will be 13, this here is 14. So if this is 14, you trace it up to this point. This is where it meets the graph, the line, and you trace it back to this point. So this will be 60, 70. That's it. So 70 beats per minute. Now, coronary heart disease is the blockage of one of the blood vessels of the heart. Now, state the name of the blood vessel. That's the coronary artery. Coronary artery. List 2 risk factor for coronary heart disease. That's stuff that can trigger it. Those are risk factor. Things like smoking can trigger coronary heart disease. Poor lifestyle, like when you don't, i.e., you don't exercise, or sedentary life. Another thing can be poor diet. So when your food is high in cholesterol, just put fat there. So another thing that can cause coronary heart disease is when there is a lot of stress, so you need to rest. Now list the name of 2 types of cell that is found in the blood. Now the blood helps to transport WBCs, which is the white blood cells. Please, in the exam, do not write WBCs, just write white blood cells, please. Now, why the RBCs, which are your red blood cells? So, we're done with that. So, let's move next. I have a question number 4. So, a student investigated aerobic respiration in an arthropod. Arthropods, remember, we call them kami, which are crustaceans, arachnids, myriapods, and insects. Now, figure 4.1 shows the apparatus the student used. So if the potassium, here we have potassium hydroxide solution, remove carbon dioxide produced by the arthropod. That means these arthropods are producing carbon dioxide when they respire through aerobic process. So what will be the question? We have arthropod, potassium hydroxide that is being absorbed inside the water bath. So the colored liquid moved 9 millimeters in 30 seconds. So calculate the rate of movement of the colored liquid. Now, in IG biology, once you're given the unit, you can actually use it as a clue for your answer. So here we have millimeters per second. It simply means mm over s. So it moves in how many millimeters, which is 9, in how many seconds? 30. So 9 divided by 30 will give you 0.3 millimeters per second. Now they say predict the distance moved for 1 minute. So if it moves 9 millimeters for 30 seconds, now for 1 minute, it will be, you have 60 seconds. 1 minute is equal to 60 seconds. So how many there? If you divide through, so your answer will just be 9 times 2, give you 18 millimeters. State the name of the gas taken in by the arthropods that cause the colored liquid to move. Now, since it's aerobic respiration, the gas that it takes in is the oxygen. So the oxygen will react to the nutrient in that process. Now, take one sentence that explains why a water bath is used to maintain. So water is used to keep the temperature constant, to maintain temperature so that the enzymes will not denature. Now, carbon dioxide is one product released by aerobic respiration. State the name of the other product. Now, in aerobic respiration, it will give you, it is when you have glucose plus oxygen, which is the gas taken in, we give you carbon dioxide, CO2, plus water. So now, they say carbon dioxide is one product. So this is the second product, there is H2O, which is water. Now, state the name of the organ in humans that excretes carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is excreted by the lungs. Simple. Now, respiration releases the energy needed for body processes. Complete the sentence to describe some of the ways energy is used by the body. Energy is required for muscle contractions. Energy is required for muscle contraction. These allow our bodies to move. Now, energy is also required for the passage of nerve impulses. These are electrical signals that are passed along cells called nerve cells. Nerve cells. Neurons. Now, question number 5. Figure 5.1 is a drawing of part of cross section of a leaf. So the same thing, we need to label. You need to label the part of this. So this can be the epidermis. A. B is the phloem. C here is the stomata. And you see this group of cells that have S spaces in between is the spongy mesophyll cells. Now remember, the one beneath is phloem and the one above here is the xylem. S spaces, then these are your guard cells. This is your palisade mesophyll cells. Group of 8 will become a tissue. So this, I would prefer to call it palisade mesophyll layer. So identify the part. So we've done that. So you just need to fill this in. That's all. State the number of guard cells. So if you come back, the guard cells, these are guard cells. So they control the opening and closing of the stomata. So we have 1, 2, 3, and 4 because there are 2 stomatas here. So 4 guard cells. And the xylem is responsible for transporting water through the plant. State one other substance transported by the xylem. It transports water and mineral ions. The enzyme responsible for transporting water through the xylem, okay, so it's mineral ions. Now state the type of cell through which water enters a plant. Is the root hair cell. Now describe how water moves out of a leaf. Now the first thing is water moves out through transpiration. Now through evaporation from the spongy mesophyll layer. Evaporation from spongy mesophyll layer, and also diffusion of water vapor out through the stomata. State the word equation for photosynthesis, and that's the opposite of respiration. So photosynthesis is, since it's just the word equation, it's water plus carbon dioxide will give you glucose plus oxygen. That's all. State the type of energy required for photosynthesis. You need light energy. That's it. So next question, number 6, is a researcher investigated the effect of temperature on 2 different biological washing powder A and powder B. Now 2 identical pieces of clothing were stained with the same type of food. So the researcher timed how long each washing powder took to remove the stain at different temperature. So this is for A, this is A and this is B. Different temperature, time taken for stain to be removed. So the first question is determine the time taken for washing powder A to remove stain at 20 degrees Celsius. So simple, you come back to your graph, you look at 20 degrees Celsius, which is actually happening, the time taken. So 20 degrees Celsius, you trace it up to this point, and the value there is 40. So all you need to do here is 40 minutes. The next question is, state why 40 degrees Celsius is the best temperature used for washing powder B. Now look at it. So it takes, at 40, it takes the lowest time to remove all the stain, which is at 20 minutes. Now it means 40 degrees Celsius is the optimum temperature. That's it. Now a student stated some conclusion for the result shown in figure 6.1. Now tick two boxes that show two correct conclusions for the result shown in figure 6.1. Now washing powder B is active over a greater range of temperature than washing powder A. It's active over a greater range of temperature than washing powder A. No, it stops here. Washing powder A is higher, so that's wrong. Now washing powder A and B do not work at 50 degrees Celsius. Let's see, at 50 degrees Celsius both are still working, so that's wrong. Washing powder A and B have the same activity at 37 degrees Celsius, so check where the both of them meet. They meet here. Yeah, that's 7, so that's correct. Washing powder A can remove the stain in 15 minutes. There is none that can remove stain in 15 minutes, which is here. So the best is 20 minutes, so that's wrong. Since it's two boxes, then washing powder A is more effective at lower temperature than washing powder B. So washing powder A is active at a temperature of approximately 15 degrees Celsius, while washing powder B only starts at 20 degrees Celsius. So that's correct. That's the two correct answer. Now state one factor other than temperature that affects enzyme activity. That's the pH. Enzyme are biological catalyst. Define the term catalyst. So catalyst is a substance that speed up the rate of chemical reaction without being used. Okay. Now they said figure 6.1 is a diagram that shows the action of an enzyme. So if still same thing, you label this. So this is the substrate. Obviously this is the enzyme, and that's the enzyme. This space here is the active site. So once they combine, they form the enzyme substrate complex. So Z here represents the enzyme. So X and Y are both product. So state the letter or letters from figure 6.2 that represent substrate. Substrate is V, enzyme is Z. That's all. Lipase is an enzyme commonly found in washing powder. Complete the word equation for the reaction that involve the enzyme lipase. Lipase is used to break down lipids, and lipids are fat and oil. Oil is liquid at room temperature, while fat is solid at room temperature. Broken down by lipids to give you fatty acid and glycerol. That's all. Now, this next question is, let's see, scientists recorded the percentage of endangered species in each of the 5 groups of vertebrates in 2000 and 2011. So you have your key here: 2000, 2011, 5 group of vertebrates: amphibians, mammals, birds, reptiles, and fish. So let's see what the question is quickly. Percentage of endangered species. So state the vertebrate group that had the largest increase in the percentage of endangered species between 2000 and 20. Obviously, that's mammals. They have the largest increase. Sorry, amphibians. I said mammals. So amphibians. Because in 2011 and this is 2010, so you find out that the increase is quite enormous. Now, state the vertebrate group that has a decrease in the percentage of endangered species. So a decrease. So yeah, you see, in 2000, mammals is higher in endangered species but lower in 2011. So mammals have a decrease. State the percentage of fish species that were endangered in 2011. So in 2011, percentage of fish that were endangered is this. So you trace this. That's 6%. Percent is there already. State one feature of bird which distinguish them from the all other vertebrates. Simple, they are covered with feathers. One reason species become endangered is pollution from discarded waste such as plastic. Describe 2 ways of preventing plastic waste entering the environment. First, you recycle, reduce the use, reuse, you use degradable plastic, use biodegradable plastic. I believe any 2 of that will go. Now, reducing pollution can help to conserve species. Yeah. So outline other ways that can be used to conserve endangered species. First, you can do what is known as captive breeding. So captive breeding, you can have conservation parks. You can have a proper monitoring system. You can law against hunting, so you can be protected. You can have conservation, You can have conservation and reconstruction of habitat. So that's the basic ones to give you a full mark. So I think I'm moving to the last question, which is this. So differences between the features of the five group of vertebrate have arisen over very long period of time. Now, these differences is as a result of natural selection, survival of the fittest. The box on the left contain the term natural selection, while the box on the right contain some sentence endings. Now, draw three lines to link the term natural selection to with three sentence ending to make three correct sentences. Okay, wonderful. Natural selection involve humans choosing the best species, that's selective breeding. Involve only the best adapted species, best adapted organisms surviving and breeding, yes. Involve passing alleles to offspring, yes, to pass the alleles to their offspring. Occur because all offspring are identical to their parent. Occur as there are not enough resources for individual. Only occur in animals, no, it occur both in plant. Um, occur because all offspring are identical to their parent. Natural selection will occur. Now, occur as a result of not enough resources within their environment. So, now because lack of resource will lead to competition among organisms, and the ones that have not developed the adaptive feature will not be able to compete and die out. So, but the one that have developed the adaptive feature will be able to pass on the alleles to its future generation. And variation also help in the development of this adaptive feature. So, if they occur because all offspring are identical to their parents, that's absolutely not correct. So, thank you so much for this section, and you need to 2022 paper 32 core 61 okay 0610. Okay, thank you.